Well, hello there, and welcome to another interview presented by me, Jack Lucas Caffrey. Now, today, I have a Formula One YouTuber on the program who has over 300,000 subscribers. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Josh Revell. How are you doing today?
Doing very well, thank you very much. Here in the centre of London, trying to sort of make sense of what it's like to have or be in a city that's actually got good public transport.
Yeah, which it does actually. I found London when I was there like 7 years ago to actually have pretty good transport, unlike Dublin, which only has two train lines. Anyway, what are you actually doing over in Britain at the moment? What has brought you over there in London?
Well, really, it's kind of the epicenter for everything motorsport, Formula One related. Um, there used to be two good things about living in New Zealand. One of them was sort of being away from it all. The other was having a good rugby team. Obviously, that one's gone. But the thing is that because we are so far away from everything, you know, we're far away from the teams, we're far away from the resources, we're far away from just about almost every facet of it. Again, the only benefit is that you're away from a lot of it. But you know, like you take Abu Dhabi for example, that Grand Prix starts at 3 a.m. for us in New Zealand. Every other Grand Prix is either 1 or 2 a.m. And you got to remember as well, there's a feeder series programs as well that you got to attach yourself onto. So you got a racing program which starts at like 8 or 9 p.m. and can go on until like 6 or 7 a.m. And it's decidedly unhealthy to be having that sort of timetable. So really, I'm over here to sort of see whether or not living in normal hours is a good thing, but also just to see what it would be like if I were to make the choice to come over here, and also just in general, just going to mess about Europe a little bit, catching up with other content creators and friends, and also going to the Belgian Grand Prix, provided the damn thing doesn't get rained out again. So sort of doing a lot of everything.
Yeah, hopefully it does not rain there again. But let's get into some of the things you've done on your YouTube channel. Firstly, actually, before we actually get onto the YouTube stuff, I was wondering what did you actually do with your life before you decided, oh, I'm going to do some YouTube videos?
What did I do in my life before YouTube became a thing? Well, when you're 17, 18 years old and you're in the final year of high school, the vast majority of people at that point are always the same way. I don't know what I want to do. You still have no real clue. I mean, I was pushed, I guess, into the IT department, which kind of wasn't really what I wanted to do, but like journalism, storytelling, that wasn't considered a viable option, of course. Go into IT. You'll get your money there. Ironically, I almost got no money from IT, and all my money's just come from talking out of my ass. So it's funny, isn't it? I guess it's one real true example of just find your niche. So got the degree in web development, passed it in flying colors. And as soon as I graduated, I found that there was no real job opportunities for any junior developers. Well, there were for junior developers, but only if you had 3 years experience. It's like, what do you want? You want a junior developer, or do you want someone who's got experience? Like, yeah. And when I couldn't find a job, I just needed something to work with. Ended up working in a logistics factory for my uncle. Then that company went broke after 7 months, which isn't ideal from an employment standpoint. Then worked in the hospitality sector, which, if people read between the lines, you know exactly where I worked. And I did that whilst I was back at university going into computer science. I realized that wasn't my thing. And so for a year, half a year, I actually moved to the UK to do what every other Australasian does, and that's work in a pub. That worked out badly as well. Came back home, got a job with HP New Zealand. That went okay, apart from the pay being abysmal. And on the side, I just wanted to see certain videos made on YouTube, Formula One, because there weren't really many content creators back then. There was WTF1, Shane there, Aldas was there as well. There really wasn't anyone else. Like neither Tom or I existed at that point in the algorithm, which is funny because you look at where we are today. It's just like, damn, that evolved out of nothing. So yeah, like there was no videos on Andrea Moda and about what happened to that team. It's just like, how is he nothing about this? So I credited myself with a $5 microphone. No, it was a $5 headset, which was broken in half, and the microphone was also dangling down as well. I was speaking into that, and bass booms the hell out of my audio. So what we got was, in effect, audio quality that came out of a snuff movie with a narrative as well that shifted from being serious to clownish at the end of the video. It was an appalling mess, but it was something out there. And randomly 6 months after the fact, it just caught on. But I knew that I wanted to push it in another direction, because people take the sport way too seriously a lot of the time, you know that as well. And I wanted to just, respect the sport, because I love the sport dearly, but just come on, we can be fun as well. we can, look at this from an amusing standpoint sometimes, not deliberately comedic, but just take the piss basically sometimes. And then I came out with a batch of videos that I wanted to see. I didn't care if I didn't have an audience or not. I just wanted to see these videos. And about the Dan Tickton video, that's when it took off. People noticed, and snowball went on. About February 2020, I quit the HV job. I was getting a decent enough from YouTube, but I also got a job offer at Autocar New Zealand for journalism. After 3 months, it was interfering with the YouTube channel, and I had to make a choice between YouTube or journalism. And with it being a period of uncertainty, I decided to go to the job which was more uncertain in income, which was YouTube. But it worked out very well because in the end, climbed to the ranks of which I am now on the F1 YouTube algorithm, and the reason why I'm back here in London for now.
Yeah, and it did turn out well, but you did start the channel, as you said, with like the absolute worst of material. Like I decided to actually watch, while researching it, I decided to watch the original Andrea Moda video you did, and then the remake video of that you did as well, side by side. I mean, the difference is unbelievable. Like the first one sounded like an Xbox 360 microphone, and then the other one was like this absolutely professional, like YouTuber who's done it maybe 8 years, but in actuality it was only maybe a few years that happened.
Yeah. I mean, I was so appalled with that video when I watched it back. I'm just like, I've got to remake it. And if I remade it again, I'll do it a lot better. It's a never-ending process in terms of learning. I mean, hell, even the Lauda video that I released not too long ago, a lot of people just said, "Oh man, that was amazing," and I was just like, all right. I watched it back and I was like, so many things I could have done so much better. But yeah, that's one of the main driving forces behind the channel, is that I want to improve as much as I can and, just tell stories along the way. That's all it really has been. I'm just in a lucky position now where it's a source of income,
Yeah. And actually, speaking about the Hunt and Lauda video as being one of your recent ones, I actually did find that to be a very good one, because it was a very serious video, but it was also, I just found it very good. What was it like making that sort of video on a season that happened almost 50 years ago?
Well, I mean, we've all seen Rush,
Yeah.
and it's a great movie, and I know some people will say, "Oh, don't you hate Ford versus Ferrari?" It's like, yes, but there's a difference. Rush is 80% fact, 20% fiction. With Ford versus Ferrari, it's the other way around. It's 80% fiction, 20% fact. Well, you got to have that Hollywood blend in there, So some things were kind of taken liberty with, but the thing is that it was still a damn good movie, What I wanted to achieve with what I did is that, tell the story in a good way as well, but present everything as was. Don't bring creative license into it, you know. And there is obviously a lot that wasn't talked about, like you know, the fact that you watch the movie and you think, oh well, Lauda got cold feet ahead of the Grand Prix that he didn't want it to take place, whereas in actuality, you know, that meeting to boycott the race took part before the first round of the championship, you know. So just little things like that, where, you know, you bring in a fresh take with, you know, some new info that people wouldn't know about, but pay homage as well to what Rush achieved, because it was still a great piece of work in its own right. So yeah, I mean, when you talk about series, I guess I really do wish I could sort of do something that's not as much of a frigging clown show as I normally do. I mean, yeah, some things do warrant that sort of, you know, narrative, you know, like some of the more crudely talented drivers, shall we say. Like sometimes they do deserve a little bit of flack, but you know, when with the Hunt Lauda rivalry, I couldn't exactly, you know, be a jester. You know, it was one of the most iconic rivalries in the sport, and two of the most loved characters as well. And they're both not here anymore, and it's, yeah, like it was. I was happy with how a lot of it went, for sure. And you know, some people said, "Oh, I felt this way in this part of the video." It's like, well, I'm glad, because that's sort of what I was aiming for. Yeah, it was good fun, and I think I said before, I want to do more of that stuff. You know, so I'm studying on the Senna Prost one, that rivalry right now, which is going to be great fun when I start picking sides in that video. But yeah, it's definitely more in the direction I want to go, for sure.
Yeah, yeah. But the jokes are a big part of the channel. Three of the memes that are very popular that some people kind of like to meme about is the Sean Geleal bruh, the Sir Lancelot, and the Lord Mahaveer. Where did those three sort of come from?
So with Sean Geleal, that was just one random thing. I mean, like a lot of these are just random. And I don't expect people to know exactly where the hell this joke comes from or whatever the hell. It's sort of just what goes on in my head. And what goes on in my head is just an absolute ricochet of, you know, insanity. Yeah, like that whole thing, the whole Sean Geleal thing is just hyping up this dude who a lot of people just had no regard for. But you know, it's sort of caught on now where we just, you know, we jokingly hype up these drivers. You know, it's a bit of a rib for sure, but it's not completely decimating them like some people do. Like some people do completely take the piss out of Lance, Stroll, and Latifi. I mean, this is taking the piss out of them, but it's not doing it in a way that's admonishing them. So it's kind of a, you know, I don't know. I don't even know how as drivers would take this whole thing. But yeah, it's just the joke of hyping up this dude so much, making him into the sort of monster of a talent. And then with Sean Geleal and then him going over the top, it's just, yeah. It just sort of went from there, and it's just a recurring joke, which, you know, some people are bored of. Don't blame them, but it's just a staple of the channel. But so Lancelot, I'm not exactly sure how that came about. I think it was just me just tying, you know, Lance and hearing Sir Lancelot a bit. I just sometimes come up with these nicknames for drivers, which I don't know if they're funny or not. I don't really mind. It's just what I call them sometimes. And that sort of caught on alongside King Latifi. And yeah, with Mahaveer, that whole music thing, that whole music cue, basically the way it came about was that I needed a music cue for the start of the Monaco Grand Prix where he cut the corner. And I was listening to all this random royalty-free music, and I heard "Take a Chance" by Kevin MacLeod. And it was this sort of Superman music, Superman-esque music. I was thinking, I am going to take the piss. Just put it on top of there, where, you know, I was saying he managed to take several positions at the start, but there was a reason for that. And just this uplifting crescendo as he cuts the corner with absolutely no regard for track limits. You know, it's just, and that music caught on, you know, absolutely caught on. And yeah, in all that time, he's become a cult hero, and he hates my guts. So it's all good.
So, has there been like any sort of F1 or F2 drivers that have actually seen the content that have maybe told you what they think, or have you met any of
Yeah.
them?
There are a few drivers out there, like in V8 supercars, IndyCar, Formula 2, Formula 3. I'm not certain of any Formula 1 drivers, but in all areas, really. And it's strange, isn't it? Like, I've had a few of these drivers say, "Oh man, I love your videos." It's like, I watch you drive. You're my hero. This isn't how it's supposed to go. It is weird, I suppose, in that regard, because you're basing your content off of your passion, and then your passion's sort of coming back to you. So it is a bit weird, I guess. Yeah, there are quite a few out there. The more notable one is Dan Tixon. Um, in I've done 3 videos on the dude, and all 3 of them he replied to me. And surprisingly self-reflective dudes, like, because in motorsport you have a high opinion of yourself, otherwise you wouldn't do it. But I think he knows that he's caused trouble for himself, and he's pretty, accepting of the fact that a lot of it was his fault. But never admonished me or anything like that. He was pretty straightforward guy, which sounds strange, because like I would say, "Oh, he's a changed man," all this stuff, and then all of a sudden some other crap would just come up. It's just like, oh my god, no, Dan, don't reply to some of these people. Just yeah. Um, the only run-ins I've really had with drivers, I guess, is the time where Alessio Delita wasn't happy with the first video I made on him. So I was like, okay, I'll take the video down. Waited 2 hours. Was like, cool, sweet, month's over. I'm gonna get ad revenue for that video anyway. Thank you. It was there's not too many negative feedback from drivers who I base videos on. But I probably don't hear some of what they say, because at the end of the day, at the end of the day, a lot of us are basing opinions off of our perspectives. But as someone who's been in the paddock before, like, you never know the full story. So it's like, I remember chatting to a few drivers about some of the stuff, and I'd be asking, like, dude, I want to get the story straight. And they're like, oh, I'm muzzled PR wise. And then I release a video of information I have. It's just like, didn't get that right. It's like, you didn't help me. Like, it is a bit frustrating with the PR department there, because I would like the story to be set straight with some of these people. But yeah, it's quite interesting seeing the people who do follow the content, some of which is pretty surprising, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Another series that you do that a lot of people like is the WTF Happened To series. So, where did that whole idea sort of come from?
Well, it was initially born out of Dan Tixon, because it's like, he was touted for a while as the next Revell F1 driver. And then within a few months, it was destroyed. It's like it's literally evokes that reaction, And I go through all of these, drivers, teams, whatever have you, where it evokes that reaction. You just think, well, like, take Ricardo Rosset, for example. He won stuff over in Brazil. He came over to Europe, and in his debut Formula 3000 series, which is like F2 back in the time, he got second in his first year, which is crazy good, especially back then. And he goes to Formula 1, and within 3 years, he's one of the worst drivers of all time. It's like, how? Jean Alesi, one of the best natural talents of the last sort of 30, 40 years, only wins 1 race and never in contention for a championship. And then sort of fizzled out in the early millennium. These are all about, like, unfulfilled potential, basically. And there's only so much of them you could do, but it's yeah, it is. It's a fun series nonetheless because you get to really dig your claws into some of the more interesting stories of the sport for sure. Um, Not 100% sure when the next one's going to be, but all I'm going to say is that when it comes to the driver, hopefully I will actually be speaking to him and getting the stories straight because, yeah, like with this driver, I heard stories, for example, that he was the nation's first F1 driver. And a couple of the journalists I was speaking to said that, at the height of him being in Formula One, he would have, people running up to him in shopping centers in front of his family, proposing to him in front of his family. It's just, like you just have stories like that where it's just sort of, yeah, it's kind of crazy, I guess. But yeah.
Very interesting. Well, I'll be looking forward to that one when that eventually comes out, if you get to manage to do it. Another thing you also do as well, which is a little different to the normal content that you do, but it is the movie reviews. So you'll get maybe like a motorsport movie, like one that's old, one that's new, something like Cars. What's it like reviewing a movie?
A lot of these movies have a lot of what's it called?
Cult fan bases?
Cult fan bases, sentimental value, I guess. Like from growing up watching these movies, they helped me get into the sport. The first one I did, I think, was Driven, and I did that because it's entertaining sometimes, but Jesus, it looked at the laws of physics and thought we could do without you. Some of the most grotesquely unrealistic stuff you'd ever seen in your life, but I'll still watch it because damn, it's entertaining. There's that, and there was Cars, which I grew up in that time where Cars was all the rage, and I was into V8 supercars, into Formula One back then, NASCAR as well. Although all the stuff was delayed coverage, but it was related to cars, and I remember it came out, I was just all over it. And there's quite a few people who follow my channel who grew up in my time as well, so it holds a lot of value to them as well. And to reflect on these movies is like revisiting childhood for a lot of us. Or you could be growing up after my time and then see my Cars 2 review and completely hate my cars. It's all based on perspective, I guess. But yes, sometimes I get some real strange requests for that. The next one's coming out in a couple of weeks. I had to delay it because I was so caught up in other projects. But a lot of people would keep on requesting for the movie Turbo, which is about a snail who's trying to get into the Indy 500. It's like, what is this? And eventually I was pressured, like, fine, I'll watch it. I'll have a look at it. And after watching it, I'm like, okay, there's enough here for a review. But there's Days of Thunder, there's freaking Elvis Presley's Speedway movie, there's Al Pacino's Formula One movie. There's stuff out there. There's also Pegasus, the Chinese rally movie, where about 30 minutes into it, I had to make sure that I wasn't taking acid because it was completely off the walls. There's the Jackie Chan Thunderbolt movie from 1995, which is actually surprisingly good. And then you've got the Fast and the Family saga, and then you got the spoofs of that stuff. There's so many things to cover in this, and so many wacky movies as well, which nobody knows about. Like a lot of these movies I found out through really trawling through, and to bring it across and just sort of delve over it as a racing fan rather than just a pure movie reviewer. It's definitely it's definitely more on the fun side. It's not everyone's cup of tea, but it's better than just saying, oh, now this week I've got the junior career for the 389th driver. Definitely want to sort of get a bit more variety in the content,
Yeah. And you mentioned there that you're going to do like a bit of a review of Turbo. I have not watched that movie in about like 9 years. What did you think of it? Because I don't remember enough about it to think, do I think it's good or is it bad?
Well, the one thing I immediately realized was that the main villain was almost insultingly French, even if he was Canadian. It's like, yeah, it's. I guess the one thing I appreciated about that was that it brought out, the sort of, the sort of passion for racing, I guess, and how much racing drivers, endeavor to be, on that path. But it paid enough to respect to the Indy 500. Like it was very well animated. And it paid enough respect to the sport, but it wasn't overloading as well. I think it was sort of a perfect blend of everything. The only thing is that it did feel a bit hollow. In terms of a few aspects. I won't delve into any more because at that point, why release a review?
Yes.
It's just like, just watch Jack's interview. I reviewed it all on there. It'll all come out soon. Where I dig my claws into it. It's fun. The movie reviews are fun videos to make.
Yeah. And another movie that you reviewed was a movie called Lady Driver. What made you review that movie? Because I have a bit of a weird story regarding that film.
Where did I first watch? I just came up in Netflix recommended. For one reason or another, I don't know why. I was like, "Man, what's this?" And then I saw because it always shows you the snippet for the movie, and it showed dirt racing. I'm like, that's different. Okay, well, I'll give it a watch. Because why not? It's a racing movie. And I watched it. I was like, this is oddly endearing. It's a different thing. Than anything I'd ever watch. And I always watch these kinds of things, and it's like, watched it. It was like, there's a lot of stuff to take from this, and put it out there. So yeah, it was a racing movie. What was the story that you were hearing about it?
Yeah, so it's a bit of one that happened to me. So I saw your review of Lady Driver, I watched it, I was like, oh yeah, that seems like an interesting movie, and never thought about it again. And then last month I was given the opportunity to interview this video game composer called Jamie Christopherson, who made music for video games like Metal Gear and stuff like that. And when I was researching him, I found out that he made the music to Lady Driver. And so I interviewed him, went in the interview, and I said to him, oh yeah, I'd love to speak about that movie, Lady Driver, he interviewed. Not because I watched it or anything, but there's this YouTuber I follow, and he covered it and everything. And so yeah, there you go. The film composer is aware of your review.
God damn. You're even aware of my movie reviews now. This is how to take this all in.
Yeah. Bit of a weird one, but there you go. He was appreciative that you gave it a good review anyways.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's like, I don't know. There's the other thing as well, as I look at these movies, not necessarily in terms of films, obviously that has a bit of weight, but I also look at it from a racer's standpoint. So you take Cars 2 and Cars 3, for example. Cars 2, I hated it because it made no sense. A lot of it just made no sense. It was just a complete ricochet of just randomness. And it seemed to lose exactly its whole sort of purpose. Which I was just like, I'm over this. Whereas with Cars 3, it was pretty set on what it wanted to be. It remained, constant, but it also brought up a lot of, aspects of what, as racers, we love about the sport and about the passion for the sport, and, drivers coming up and the old guard losing momentum and stuff like that. A lot of sort of aspects. So yeah, I guess that's sort of what separates me from, what separates me from people who actually know about films.
Yeah, definitely. Another thing about the channel that makes it quite unique is the animated version of yourself that you put on screen. So What gave you the idea to sort of put an animated version of yourself? And yeah, how long does it take to make that part of the video?
Well, it came about through watching some other animated YouTubers, primarily Alex Myers, who does a lot of sort of film reviews and TV series reviews. A lot of the stuff I wouldn't watch on my own, but he brings it across in a way that is entertaining for anyone who watches it. And I thought I'd like to do something like that. Although back in the day, I knew nothing about animation. Fast forward to today, I still don't know anything. But at the very least, I now have a graphics tablet, whereas back then I didn't. I couldn't afford one. I couldn't afford a 50 quid one because I was that broke. So I was using Bitmojis, which that is below poverty. That is just complete desperation. But I got through that. Got the graphics tablet. I tried to make something which was sort of halfway decent. Couldn't even do that. And with the help of can't pronounce his last name. His first name's Andre, and he does very similar, content. And yeah, felt very bad with how much influence I took from him. But it's hard to in the time it takes to make these videos. It's very hard to dedicate more time to animation and just getting the mouth to move. Like a lot of the time, my character has lockjaw, and I'd like to make the mouth move a lot, and I'm creeping that into there. But whereas before it would take about half a minute to implement a section of animation, and there are 50, 60 odd parts with animation. That process takes 10 times longer when you start to make the mouth move. So it's taxing time wise to do this kind of stuff. But yeah, there's endless possibilities you have with the animation thing. And it's also just something that nobody else was doing in Formula One YouTube. And I figured, well, I want to do it. I like it. No one else is doing it. Do it.
Yeah, yeah. And it works very well. It works very well for the videos. And how long does it actually take to make a single video? Or is there like a certain time frame of how long it takes or whatnot?
It depends upon the movie. It depends upon the video. Sorry. I will be on a Wednesday or Thursday, and I'll start sort of mentally planning for what video I want to do. And hopefully by that time I've actually decided what I'm going to do. Friday my time, Friday 4 a.m. whenever, will be British 5 p.m. Thursday time. Release the video. Probably spend about half of Friday sort of just doing nothing and sort of sitting relaxing. Then I begin researching and scripting, and I've got to have something completed by Saturday, Sunday. Review the first draft, make sure it passes somewhat, record it, cut the audio down, fit it all together, and from then on I'll have about 3 or 4 days where I've got to edit the video completely and have it turned out. And at the same time, I'm also planning for the next video. But that's just an average one. You take like Hunt Lauda, for example, it's much more extensive research. So the equivalent would be Senna Prost, which is the next sort of big thing. Also Sebastian Vettel and Gilles Bianchi, those videos. I'm researching them all now, and they're not going to be out till the end of the year because I'm doing this all concurrently with videos that are coming out right now. So there's just so much that goes into these videos, and they barely get out in time. But you take like Cranky Yankee, for example, the reason why his videos take so long to, come out is because they're so extensively researched. Honestly, I'd like to churn out these videos like rabbits, but yeah, just there's so much time that goes into making these videos for sure, and the bulk of it is down to the editing and the research.
Yeah, yeah. And as well as that, you also got to make your own video for the Formula One YouTube channel of all things. What was it like making a video for their channel?
Well, when I first got an email from them, I just thought, Crap, they found me. No, they came to me and they were like, "Hey, we're all big fans of your channel here at the sort of F1 media complex. Would you be interested in collabing on the official F1 channel?" I'm like, "Am I being punked? What's going on here? Surely this can't be real." Eventually got on a WhatsApp call to them, and it's like, this is real. Like, I'm not passing this up. Sure, cool. And it was on a mid-season review for Formula 2. I was like, cool, sweet. Got it down. They nailed down some terms, and the terms were basically sort of like, don't slander the drivers. I'm like, damn it. Don't slander the cars. I was like, even more damn it, because those things are unreliable. Basically sort of just, muzzle yourself to an extent, but still bring out what, makes your channel unique. I was like, well, what makes my channel unique is slandering people. That was sort of like, okay, let's make sure I don't, brass anyone off. But yeah, it was quite strange, really, to experience that. But if I'm being 100% honest, like, having that sort of muzzle was a little bit, I would say bad or degrading or whatever the heck. It was just like, couldn't really voice what I truly thought of certain things. I couldn't say Deleta shouldn't be in Formula 2. I couldn't say Mick Chrome was a joke. I couldn't say that Bruno Michel completely hides behind the shadow of his own ass when it comes to actually rectifying the problems with the sport. I can't say any of that. Like, it was a bit frustrating. I did appreciate the opportunity for sure, but yeah, I think, having worked for third parties before, I definitely prefer my own domain because I have ultimate control over that for sure. But yeah, it was a very interesting experience. I don't know if it would ever happen again, but yeah, like, I mean, who knows? Who knows? Maybe time will heal old wounds between Bruno Michel and I, because ever since that video, I've almost gone out of my own way to completely just obliterate him at times.
But yeah, I did notice that there was definitely a difference between the normal videos you do and the video you did for the F1 channel. Like, even from the get-go, like the Sir Lancelot t-shirt was like censored. It was like the Marlboro on the Ferrari gone.
They didn't really ask for that. I just did it, because I don't know. I guess I just wanted to avoid any crap. No, I figured, best to just neutralize this, because the last thing I want is for Big Daddy Stroll to see any of that and then take me to any court in the land, because Lord knows he can afford it. Yeah, it was also, it was no request for that. It was sort of just my own sort of choice, really. But yeah, weird times, man. Weird times.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And have you also went to an F1 race at all? Have you ever went to one?
Yeah, first time I've been able to go to one was 2020 Australian Grand Prix.
Oh, great.
Yeah, like, and I luckily, like, the event was cancelled 4 hours before my flight was due to leave to Melbourne. And had I gone, I would have been trapped over there because New Zealand shut the border down at that time. So I guess lucky. But before that, I never had a chance to go to a Grand Prix because we were never, prosperous enough to be able to afford flights, tickets, the Grand Prix tickets, that is, and accommodation to go over to Melbourne. It was never really viable for us. But thanks to YouTube, I could do it. And this year came about, 2022, Australian Grand Prix came back. It's like, I'm going, like, I need to go to a Grand Prix. And finally went this year, 2022 Australian Grand Prix, and it's a very unique experience, that's for sure. You are on ground level and you see these characters there. Couple noteworthy things. I was down at the fast left-right complex at Albert Park, and they all went through there fast as hell. The only person that actually made me jump back and just like, whoa, that was faster than that car had any right to go through there, was Max Verstappen. That dude was just rapid as all hell. So it was great to watch. It was great to watch him hustle that thing. The other thing I noticed was on the drivers' parade where they had, everyone was just in their cars and just waving to the crowd. But Sir Lewis was on the back of his car and just waving out. And it was almost like watching the Pope come by. It's just like, this guy has got importance above everyone else here. And he's someone who everyone just immediately loves when they see him. And I swear there was a little bit of a ray of sunshine that accompanied it. It was just like, it was very, because that was the first time I saw him in the flesh. And I've been watching this guy since he, debuted, and, repped him forever. I mean, I got the shirt on right now. So it was like, after 15, 16 years of watching this guy compete in Formula One, to see him in the flesh for the first time was just crazy, for sure. Otherwise, watching a Grand Prix for the first time in 27 years, like very, very unique experience for sure. And the aftermath of the Grand Prix where everyone was just hanging off the fences and stealing the DRS signs, that was, it's just like, welcome to Australia, mate. Like Australian race. I look forward to seeing this DRS sign on eBay in about 2 hours' time. It's just like found this in the parking lot. I'm sure you did, mate. I didn't at all see you with a screw kit just unhinging it. And after that, where they actually they banned people from taking that stuff, or they reinforced it or something. It was crazy. Just like, just seeing people hanging off the fences and with like, or not even the fences. Yeah, people like putting people on other shoulders whilst they were up there unscrewing it.
Oh god, I didn't even know that there was people. I knew there was someone walking in the pit lane when Alex Albon was in the pits at the last bit of the race, but I didn't know there was actually people kind of taking the DRS sign for their own.
I mean, it was this was after the race was done, of course. The other thing is I've noticed as well was the flatbed pickup. The flatbed truck was carrying Vettel's car back to the pit lane, but it was going around the whole circuit. And by that time, the race was done, and every spectator was on the circuit. So that truck had slowed to a crawl, and in that time, I sort of seeing people just, reaching into the flatbed trying to pick pieces of carbon fiber out of Seb's car. It was like it was a bit like a celebrity being ushered through a crowd of people, and you have people just trying to rip people's shirt off. It's like, I got this. It's like, I'm happy for you, man, but yikes.
Yeah. I think yikes is the best way to put it, because, I think because of how F1 has grown, the whole sort of crowds that go to the events, it seems to be like a mob now. Like, how do you think F1's going to adapt to that? That's all sort of mob nature, because they don't seem to have been able to in the last while.
Well, I mean, when I went to Australia, that event set a record, I think, for Australian sports. And on race day, you couldn't move. We turned up to the gates 30 minutes before they opened, and the line was 400 yards long.
Oh,
and that's just one of the gates, And we ran and found ourselves a spot, and because we were in the nosebleed section, it's just like, you peasants are sitting on the grass for paying $400 to be here this weekend. But we got somewhere right in front of the crowd, so we couldn't have people just standing up in the first lap and blocking us. We found that section, and from there on, and if you wanted to get up and go get something or go to the portaloos or whatever you needed to do, you had to wade through the crowd to get there, and you just come back and like just seas of people. It is crazy how much more popular it's become. And there's still, there's still those groups of people that are saying no one turns up to these events. Look how empty the grandstands are. It's like you're taking pictures on a Thursday morning. Like Sunday Arvo, what's it like? Oh, it's completely packed out. I wonder why that is.
Yeah, and it just seems to be happening everywhere. Because like I went to this little, what was it, pre-war Grand Prix cars that was happening at the local racetrack, and like it was even packed there. It wasn't even F1 cars or everything, but because of the whole F1 and Drive to Survive, there was so many people there, and it was packed and everything. But maybe like 10 years ago, when I would have went there originally for something similar, there would have been maybe only just petrol heads.
Yeah, I mean, it's like people do slander Drive to Survive a bit because of some of the fans that they roped in, but you know, how long did you want to survive on the batch of fans we had before? They were only going to be around for so long, you know. And honestly, we've all got to start from somewhere. None of us were born with an encyclopedic knowledge. That's something you accumulate over time. So we should be encouraging this new crop of fans coming in, but also just help educate them on the history of the sport, about why things are the way they are. That's why I do the channel sometimes. Do the channel sometimes. That's why I make videos on my channel sometimes. It's just like, here's what happened, here's why it happened, this is why it's important, and so on and so forth. But yeah, like some people don't like what DTS has done. There are some bits that I don't like that's happened as a result of it, but by and large, it's made the sport more popular than ever. And what's bad about that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like the amount of people I know now who are into F1, maybe 10 years ago, who would have looked at me two-headed because I said, "Oh yeah, I like F1," and now here's the same people 10 years later going, "Oh, look at me, I'm watching F1, I'm tight race and everything." It's just gotten so big.
Yeah, you should just put a spin on that. It's like, I'm watching F1. It's just like, really? Why bother watching that sort of niche stuff?
Now we're coming a little bit to the end of the interview now, so I'd like to actually speak to you a bit about like predictions for the rest of the year. Watch as this segment ages like absolute milk. But firstly, Spa and Monaco, all right? People have been speaking about them maybe not returning next year or something like that. Do you think they have a chance to return next year? I hope they do, even though Monaco is a stale race. I hope they do.
Hence, can they foster the cash? Like, that's the answer.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, cash is king, really. What I don't like, here's the thing, like, I don't mind, them going to some of the countries that they're going to. What I do mind is them not going to some of the countries that they should, Now, my big gripe with Belgium going off the calendar is that some of the reason is because the Dutch Grand Prix is back. It's like, okay, so we're getting rid of Spa, but we're keeping Zandvoort. Zandvoort's a fantastic track, but Formula One cars, like, it's not a good track for modern F1 racing. And the blatant refusal to sort of widen it any more than the size of a bushland driveway is just like, as a result, we just get appalling racing. And watch this year's one become a banger. Whereas with Spa, I suppose someone said we haven't had a good race since 2008, and I was just thinking, I was like, you're not really wrong there, if I'm being honest. Like, we get surprisingly bad races at Spa-Francorchamps, but Spa and Monaco don't provide good racing.
Mm-hmm.
Yet we always look forward to them.
Mm-hmm.
Why do we do this to ourselves?
I don't know. I think Spa, like, that can offer, like, maybe good first laps or something like that. Like 2018's Here Comes Sebastian Vettel, things like that. offers some very good stuff. Monaco, it's all about qualifying, and the last like really good race in Monaco that really happened was because of the rain that happened last time. That kind of made it more interesting. Whereas the one in 2021, it was okay.
It was
It was
okay.
okay. Like
How many people finished on the lead lap?
I,
Well, put it to you this way. I could be on the most drunken stupor of my life, and I'd still be able to count it. It's, it's, it's just, yeah. It's a conundrum. We don't want to lose them, but if we're being totally honest, if what we want is good racing, why should we keep them on the calendar? The only thing I don't like is replacing these races with stuff that either doesn't provide as good racing or are in markets where it's like, why bother? You know, like some people are saying, oh, why bother with a South African Grand Prix? It's like, well, it's the more viable option for an African Grand Prix. There needs to be a race in Africa for a variety of marketing reasons, but also, to rightly claim it's a world championship. With the greatest of respect, we don't need a sixth Grand Prix in the Middle East region.
no, we don't.
Not because I'm saying we shouldn't race there, but because we need to sort of not take away opportunities from other regions. 3 American Grand Prix, was it 4 in the Middle East? You're restricting a third of the calendar to a couple of regions, which is like, all right, okay. So yeah, I'm not too sure really. Like it's all out of our hands now, isn't it? Like we're just sort of watching on and sort of hoping that what they're doing is the right call, at the end of the day. But as we've seen with Bahrain, all you need to do to make a race, amazing again overnight, add a few floodlights and change the starting time.
Another question I'd like to ask to you about predictions to F1. I think it's kind of obvious who will win the world title, but who do you think will win the world title? I think it's quite obvious at this point after how Ferrari's bottled.
It is quite obvious. Charles Leclerc. No, I mean, people will completely think I am on angel dust when I say this, but I am sticking to my guns. Like I know how mad it sounds, but it ain't over just yet. I'm sure Ferrari will, with Ferrari, where there's a will, there's a way, But dude, imagine if Charles pulls it off. Would there have been ever in Formula One history a bigger comeback than that?
Well, I know Vettel had a comeback in 2012 similar to that, where he was kind of like well off the points and then he kind of made it back up in the end. But I don't think one like Leclerc, I think Leclerc would kind of take the cake for that.
Well, all I'll say is that after Australia, Charles had a big lead in that point standings. It was obliterated in a matter of like 3 or 4 rounds. There are 9 rounds left. Anything can happen. We have seen sometimes the Red Bull slide a bit, like engine failures in Australia. Melbourne had some issues in a couple of other rounds. You never know. He may contract COVID and miss out a couple of rounds. He may, retire from some races where it's completely not his fault. There were times last year where we were saying Max is not losing this championship, and he damn nearly did. Nothing is a given in the sport, and that's part of the reason why I love it. Also part of the reason why I hate it. But it's, the thing is ultimately to take out of all of this is that I've learned never to count anything out of the equation. There were 4 things I did a whole predictions video, but there were only 4 things I was certain on. Charles winning the championship, George Russell getting his first win, which that Mercedes is getting a lot better. and he's gotten this pole, so probably not far off. The other, Carlos Sainz getting his first win,
which
take
happened.
that off. Yep, and the other was, and you got to remember, this was at a time where that first preseason test in Barcelona happened. I said McLaren were going to struggle this year. And the reason I emphasized that Barcelona test was because they were the second fastest team. And come to where we are now, and they're not that great. Like sometimes they'll be okay, and sometimes it's just like you guys don't have a sniff in hell of getting any points. So yeah, like two of them have come true so far. One is almost certainly going to happen because Merc's getting a lot better. It's not a great qualifying car, but it's a fantastic race car because it can just manage those tires well and keep the pace up. But obviously with Charles, and people will say, oh, Charles lost points as well. It's like, yes, but he didn't lose 80. Right? Like Charles lost about 30 odd points on his own. Ferrari lost 80. And that's the gap to Max in the championship. And some of those things were just unforgivable. But they were Ferrari. So it's just like I hate you, but at the same time, we should be expecting this from you lot. Yeah. It's frustrating because we should be having a great season tussle with these two. Yeah. So hopefully Charles does perform the comeback of all comebacks.
Oh yeah, and I hope so too, because I'd love for it to be down to the wire, have a great little championship battle at the end. I don't think anyone would not agree on us there. It should be down to the wire. It should be great. Hopefully Charles wins. Hopefully, I would like that. It would be very nice. And as well as that, you're also mentioning about Mercedes' pace is getting better and all that. Do you think that the likes of Hamilton and Russell have a chance of winning a race this year? Because I think it'd be really weird if Hamilton didn't win a race, considering he's won at least one race every other year.
It's the benefit of having a car that can always, get you into that position. But, like Lewis can just maximize it anytime. Like, just part of that special breed of drivers where it's just like you're watching magic at play here. It is interesting though to see him, trying to make use of something that isn't the top dog in the yard. There are a lot of people out there that wanted to see him not in the dominant car, and we're seeing that now, probably in a bit more of an extreme circumstance. But it is great to watch because you're watching someone pull this thing into a position where he could win a race. And it's like, I'm not saying he doesn't have any right to win a race, but this is uncharted waters almost for him. So it's entertaining as all hell to watch. George Russell, he's got some great potential. There's just a couple of things I'm not too keen on with him. The first is he does tout Lewis quite a bit, which is like, that's okay, but you are also his competition, like you are his competition in Formula One. Like at some point, you got to decide whether or not you want to beat him for the world championship. And ultimately that just comes out of a natural want to just see drivers do the best for themselves, rather than settling for second place. Because if you're prepared to settle for second place, why are you even in Formula One? The other thing is that start of the year was fantastic for him, pace-wise especially, but he has fallen behind Lewis now, which is not totally unexpected, but it's just like, all right, come on, Lewis is now getting his head around this. You need to get your head around it too. Like, you can't fall behind, because if you start falling behind Lewis, you're never going to catch up with him because he's just a freaking master at that. So yeah, I mean, you got to give him a little bit of time, but you're just clutching at straws here. If you look at it in actuality, like it's a perfect blend. you got the greatest of his generation, and then you got this young hotshot who's just proven to do some great things, in cars that shouldn't be anywhere near where he qualifies them. And by the time Lewis retires, they've got Kimi Antonelli coming up in the junior series, who's just dominating everything. So it's all kind of perfect, really, for Mercedes. They seem to have the drivers they need, really, there. So from a driver's standpoint, they've got no excuses. And when it comes to the car, it's a damn sight better than it used to be. Like, it's, as I said, qualifying's not brilliant, but it's all perspective, isn't it? Like, people's like, oh, it's a shit car. It's like 2 or 3 tenths off pole position time. It's not necessarily, I don't know, I don't call that shit. But it's a good race car. That's the thing. And I'm not saying that to take away anything from these guys, but the point is that it's not out of the realms of possibility. And Merc are good at developing their car. They've got some good development drivers. They've got Lewis there, who's supreme at what he does. George is equally wanting to get further up the grid. They've got a lot of things going for them heading into the second half of the season. I would be beyond shocked if both of them don't get at least a win each.
Yeah.
The problem there is, say Charles does come back into it, say Max does lose some ground. Those Merc drivers are collecting points. What if they factor into the championship? What if 3 or 4 rounds from the championship, you have George, who's ahead of Lewis by a race win worth of points? What do you do then? I mean, it's just like, imagine giving team orders to Lewis Hamilton to sit behind his teammates.
Oh my God.
Like, how dare you disrespect the GOAT? Yeah.
Oh, well, I know Valtteri Bottas, if that did happen, he would have a massive grin there. For sure.
Oh, the sourness. But yeah, I mean, do I think Merc are going to win a race this year? Absolutely, I do. Do I think they'll win a race each? Yeah, for sure. So it'll be interesting to see really what happens for the remainder of this year. Yeah. What I don't want is for the championship to end like 4 or 5 rounds out, because then we just got 4 or 5 rounds of just
yeah,
nothing to fight for.
And speaking of junior drivers, as you were mentioning earlier about Mercedes, I believe, Oscar Piastri is in a bit of an L scandal at the moment. So could you explain to some people that may not know about it what the hell is going on, and what do you think is going to happen with this whole scandal?
So for those of you that don't know, Oscar Piastri, also known as Oscar Pastry, is a dude who ran up through the junior ranks, winning Formula Regional European Championship, Formula 3, Formula 2. Can't do too much more. He didn't make it to Formula 1 initially because there were no seats available at Alpine, who he was contracted with, their academy. So throughout this year, he's been testing for Alpine at different circuits, and they've been looking to sort of feed him into their team. But when Lando Norris had tonsillitis in the early part of the year, Alpine said to McLaren, you can have him if you need be, for a couple of rounds if needs must. And in that time, Zach Brown got very smooth talking to Oscar, as he did with a few other people. And in that time, Zach Brown managed to convince Oscar that McLaren was the place to be. Unbeknownst to the fact that, of course, there was another contract over at Alpine that he had signed. And now we've got a situation where 2 teams are claiming that they have signed Piastri for 2023. It's a smorgasbord of just like, yikes. But what's funny is that I've seen like situations like this before, and I could be violently wrong here. For some reason, I'm getting Jan Magnussen vibes from Oscar Piastri right now, which some people out there will know what I mean here. what I'm meaning to say is that Jan Magnussen debuted in Formula One off the back of people praising his junior career and saying he was the next big talent after Ayrton Senna. That's a lot of hype. He came in and he fizzled out in 3 years. I don't know why, but I'm kind of getting that. And for people to say, oh, that won't happen nowadays, it's like 2 words, Stoffel Vandoorne. Ironically, who did he race for? McLaren. It can happen in the sport for sure. So I'm not predicting anything here. I'm just saying I'm getting some vibes here, like, yeah. So I don't know. Like, it's going to be very interesting to see how it all goes. That's for sure.
Oh yeah. It definitely will, and I get what you mean by that. Look at Ricardo Rosset, as you were mentioning earlier. What was doing pretty good in Formula 3000, and then just sunk in F1.
Yeah.
And to finish off the whole predictions things, because this won't be airing on the Spa Grand Prix, because it'll be airing before the Dutch Grand Prix. So I was just wondering, who do you think will win Dutch Grand Prix? It's Verstappen territory. Like, it probably is going to be him.
Yeah, I think I'll put money on that Belgian too.
Oh yeah, I think so as well. And also as well, do you think there'll be as much orange smoke in the Dutch Grand Prix as there was for Austria? I mean, there was like a hell load of that orange smoke out there.
Yeah, I kind of like that atmosphere, but at the same time, it gets to the start of the race, it's just like all I'm seeing is orange smoke, and I'm seeing particles move through the smoke. I'm assuming they are cars. So it is frustrating, and it's downright dangerous as well. It's sort of, yeah, I don't know, because it adds an element of atmosphere into it. So it's that sort of thing. It's like, it's entertaining, but God, you could be annoying. Like, I don't know, like I don't know. Zandvoort with all those Max Verstappen fans. The idea of controlling that bunch, yeah, I don't know.
No, I think it could be probably flooded with the old orange smoke and.
And I mean, I like it. I mean, I like it from a standpoint, and it's because I mean, like, there's a few of those fans who are sort of, they're riding on Max's popularity in the Netherlands, not necessarily race fans, so to speak. But as for Max himself, he's just like far out, like natural talent wise. Max is just a special driver. He's like Lewis in that regard. It's just, you watch him drive over one lap, you're just like, you're watching a magician at work here.
Yeah.
It's just annoying that some of his fans are particularly problematic.
Yeah.
It's just, again, I should emphasize this is pockets of his fans. And I think you get that with every single fan base in the world. Like,
Yeah, you do.
Every single fan base, every single block of people, majority of great guys and gals, and you get some who are a bit problematic. But at the end of the day, vast majority of us just love good racing. We love seeing great talents come through. So it's all good to watch. The important thing is just to enjoy the sport with those who want to enjoy it with you, and just shut out all the crap in between, and it could be a great experience.
Absolutely. Well, Josh, it was great having you on, and we could have you all day, but I know you have other things to do as well. So with that, thank you very much for coming on. Is there any sort of last things you'd like to say, and do you want to plug in any of the socials?
Yeah, I'd like to take time out to thank you for not bringing up a certain recent rugby test, which, as a New Zealander, we're all still grieving from, as we're watching the slow demise of our rugby team. I would say that I'm heartbroken over this, but at the same time, like, just a short story. When it comes to predictions, if you look back on one of my older videos preceding the 2019 World Cup, I predicted it perfectly. like saying this will happen, this will happen, this will happen. This one next year, I'm saying that the New Zealand rugby team will be knocked out in the pool stages by Italy. So, oh boy, like what's going to happen here? But nah, like, yeah. So, thank you for not sticking the knife. Like, I'm not at all insecure New Zealand sporting fan, of which we all are. But no, it's been in all seriousness, mate. It's been a great talk. Thanks for having me on, and yeah, we'll catch up soon, eh?
Oh yes, absolutely. Well, you can find Josh on his YouTube channel and the other socials as well. And you can also find me on my YouTube channel as well, Jack Lucas Caffrey. You may already be watching on my YouTube channel if you're watching this interview on YouTube. But Josh, thank you very much for coming on. And yes, I'll speak to you soon.